Joining me to talk about that is Austin Chambers from the RSLC. How are you?
Eric, I'm doing great. Good to be on with you. How are you?
I'm good. Now, did you go to Washington at all for any of it, or did you, like most of us, just watch it online?
You know, I tried to stay away and watch it online, and looking at the rioting and the looting and the disasters that played out last night and that are playing out in the nation's capital today, I'm glad I did.
Yeah, you and me both. I would not want to be up there. I have several friends who were caught in that mess last night trying to leave.
Sad. It really is.
In addition to the Rand Paul situation, which is crazy.
Yeah.
Now, if you wouldn't mind, give an overview of what the Republican State Leadership Committee does.
Yeah, look, the Republican State Leadership Committee is a national political organization that exists to elect Republicans in state offices. So lieutenant governor, secretaries of state, ag commissioners, judges, state legislatures, many things up and down the ballot. That's what we're focused on because, you know, if Republicans don't win in the states, our states are going to go downhill. Our communities are going to go downhill. And also, as important, is redistricting. You know, no one in Washington draws their own congressional maps. That's left up to those in the states. So it impacts both what happens in Washington and what happens in state capitals across the country. So that's why we're so focused on electing good Republicans in the state level. And what we saw in the convention this week, I think, is going to give Republicans a bounce all across the country, up and down the ticket.
Now, I mean, obviously having a Republican on, you're going to like the Republican convention more than the Democratic convention, but more specifically...
No. I love the Democrat convention more. It was a great boost for us. All they talked about was hatred for Donald Trump and disdain for this country. The Democrats are the best thing Republicans have going for them right now.
That is true. I've got to tell you, I was talking to a noted political science professor the other day who said he can't recall the last time someone got a bounce out of the other guy's convention, and yet Trump clearly did, according to every poll out there now, get a bounce out of the Democratic convention.
Look, the Democrats were talking about hatred for Donald Trump and disdain and hatred for America. Republicans were talking about how they love this country and how its best days are still ahead. And the Democrats tell us every day that love trumps hate, and that's right this time too.
Well played. Now let's get into the impact of the convention. First of all, what do you see as an impact from a political convention? Is there really a lasting impact from 1 week that most Americans didn't see on TV when it trickles down to the state level?
Look, I think from a immediate sense, what we're going to see is some soft Republicans who might have been wavering on our ticket and on our party come back home. That'll be the most immediate impact we have. And then the contrast will start to play itself out. And I think that the most important thing coming out of this convention is not one speech, even though there were a ton of great moments, and we can talk through those. Probably the most powerful convention we've ever seen. But the most lasting thing that I think comes out are the riots that are playing out right now. I mean, that is today's Democrat Party. That is Joe Biden's base. That is today's Democrat Party. They're rioting in the streets. They're attacking, as you said, Senator Paul. They're attacking guests at the White House. They're destroying property. They're burning buildings. And the Democrats refuse to stand up to them. Not only do they refuse to stand up to them, they're encouraging it, and then they're going a step further by saying they want to defund the police. That's what's going to play out over the next few weeks. And what's happened is suburban families and suburban voters, more moderate, mainstream people are starting to understand that it's no longer just in the cities. It's starting to affect their bubble and their life, too. And that's why I think we're starting to see a shift in the polls, because there is people that are terrified out there right now, and rightly so, because of what today's Democrats are pushing.
Now, more specific to you in the RSLC and even more specific to Georgia, the Republicans pushed very heavy on the issue of minority turnout and minority voices, black voices for Trump. Do you think that will be able to sustain itself through to the election and see, particularly, and I'm thinking of places like Gwinnett County where people say there's a demographic shift that hurts the Republicans. Will there be a concerted effort made to make the demography work for the GOP in those areas?
Yeah, what I think we saw at the convention was an effort to reach out to everyone, whereas at the DNC they were trying to alienate most of the country. At the RNC convention, we were trying to reach out to everyone, and I think two of the most powerful speeches were from Senator Tim Scott on the first night, and then from Alice Marie Johnson on last night, and those were two powerful testimonies that I think speak to the very best of this country, speak to the very best of this party, and I think that while we may not see huge shifts in the polls, I think what's important is that we're starting to have a conversation with Black Americans who have been not well served over the last several decades by the Democrat Party, and who want the same thing that you and I do. They just want the very best for them and their families, and it's important that we start that conversation and that we don't just write them off as, oh, the Democrats are going to have them.
I'm talking to Austin Chambers, the Republican State Leadership Committee. I always say legislative, but you guys do more than that in addition to the state legislatures. But I want to talk to you about the state legislature, particularly here in Georgia. A number of Republicans behind the scenes have said they're worried about some of the suburban seats, particularly in the state house, and they're trying to find some forward momentum. But in the last 2 days, some of these same Republicans tell me they feel like the Republican convention did a very good job, in addition to what the Democrats did for them, helping persuade some suburban voters they probably need to stick with the GOP.
Absolutely, it did. I've seen a lot of polling data over the last 4 weeks in Georgia state legislative elections. Certainly, we have a lot of tough elections in suburban areas, but Republicans in Georgia are going to hold the state house. It's going to be the toughest battle we've ever seen. We got several races to defend, but at the end of the day, we got great candidates. They got a good message. They're running good campaigns. We're going to hold the state house, and we're going to defeat the leader of the Democrat Party in Georgia, Bob Trammell, in his election down in the LaGrange area. We're going to flip that seat. So Republicans are doing what they need to do in the Georgia State House. We just got to stay on it over the next 67 days and make sure that we bring it home.
Now, there was a concerted effort on Bob Trammell in 2018, and it didn't work. What's going to be different this year as opposed to 2018?
What's different this year is that he has literally led everything that the radical Democrats in Georgia have tried to do. We've got a great candidate running against him this time. He's fully embraced Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and the platform that they're pushing. And we got great resources that are being brought to bear against him, too. So everyone's on the same page. Bob Trammell's not coming back to the state house.
I love your confidence there. Now, beyond this, you translate into other states. What coming out of the convention? There are a lot of people from North Carolina, a lot of people from Wisconsin and Minnesota. What states, though, is the RSLC looking at to try to either make some gains or hold some territory coming into 2020? Yeah.
Look, there are 44 states we're playing in right now. 14 of those are key priorities. When you dig down into it, the top tier races like Georgia for us are Texas, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Florida, Minnesota, Iowa, several others in there too. What we're seeing right now in Wisconsin with the looting and rioting and violence that's happened up there has seen a huge shift for Republicans in the last few days in the polling, both for Donald Trump at the top of the ticket and then for Republicans all the way down. So Democrats have overstepped. You got John Ossoff, for example, there in Georgia, who was saying just the other day that they need to beat Republicans so bad that they're never able to show their face in public again. And look what you have playing out on the streets. You got Nancy Pelosi saying that Republicans are the enemy of the state. You got John Ossoff saying people need to be beat up so bad that they never show their face. And now their base is in the streets acting on it. I mean, this is just craziness, and the Democrat Party is encouraging it to happen.
All right, last question for you. We've got just over 60 days left. I know you're going to say you think Donald Trump wins, the Republicans do well, but how do you actually see the race shifting in the next 60 days? What do you think the big dynamic will be? Will the riots still be a factor, or is there something else you think will probably be what resonates?
Look, if anyone tells you they know what's going to happen over the next 67 days, they'll lie to you about other things too. But here's what we know for sure. What we know for sure is that there's been a significant shift in the last 3 weeks. They're running a great campaign. The Democrats are running an awful campaign, and it's going to become a choice election. Elections are not a referendum. They're a choice between, most of the time, two people. And we have two very different visions that are playing themselves out here. Joe Biden's going to come back out on the campaign trail. He's going to stop hiding in his basement. We're going to have debates. We're going to have a real conversation about which direction this country wants to go in. Joe Biden says it's a battle for the soul of this country, and he's absolutely right. And the battle that is playing out is a war in the streets. And I think most people are tired of that, and they're going to reject his type of politics. They're going to reject the crazy policies that he's pushing. And I do think that ultimately Donald Trump's going to be reelected. And I do think that we're going to save the country because the Republicans are going to hold the U.S. Senate, which I think is the most important priority any Republican has right now. Second would be winning in the states so that we can get a majority back in Congress for the next decade.
First of all, thank you for stopping by, and I really am just struck by the fact that the president got the balance of the Democratic convention, and it is now confirmed in the polling average and every poll out. It boggles my mind that happened. It turns out that Americans actually liked a real convention as opposed to a Zoom call.
Yeah, exactly. Well, look, there's a lot of things that are going to play out. There was an interesting article this morning that I'm sure you're going to talk about that said the Democrats have spent more money and Republicans are now spending more money in the Georgia Senate race than any other. Look, David Perdue and Kelly Loeffler are key to holding the U.S. Senate. Georgia's ground zero for the presidential, the U.S. Senate, and the state house. There's no state, not just because it's home, there's no state politically that's more important than Georgia this year. And I'm just glad you're covering it, glad I'm able to stop by and be on with you, and I'll do it anytime.
Awesome. Austin, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Austin Chambers with the Republican State Leadership Committee. He actually is from Georgia and committed to making sure the Republicans hold on here.